I'm going to be talking about what happens where you find out that there is a child that is being abused, different disciplinary actions that you may experience when you are in a different country, expectations that are placed on students when you teach in a different country. What happens if you're in a country where there is really a blatant male-female dynamic? My name is Leah. Welcome to my channel. If you are interested in what life looks like living and working abroad, this channel's for you. I've been teaching abroad for a little over 6 years, and for the most part, I have had a really great experience. But everything that you experience teaching abroad is not necessarily unicorns and rainbows. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 4 things that I think can majorly affect a teacher's experience when teaching abroad. This is the other side of teaching ESL that no one tells you about. These are really sensitive topics, and before I start, I want to put out there that I am not here to criticize or demonize any culture or any country. I'm attempting to bring these to light to show that no matter how open you think that you are to an experience, that there is some part of us that still has a bias of what things should be because of the culture that we grew up in. The first thing that I'm going to share with you that seems to take people aback the most is when a child comes forward, they disclose that there is abuse going on. It's not necessarily so surprising that there's someone that's coming forward with this information, because sexual abuse and mental abuse and domestic violence is something that is worldwide. It's just not localized to one particular area. What seems to surprise people the most is how it is handled from country to country. In America, we have a network that is set in place, right? There's phone numbers that you can call, or there's counselors, or there's child protective services that get involved. And even though this is not like wiping out the problem, there's still policies that are put in place to protect people. That's not always the case in every country that you work in. You may be told to mind your business. We pay you to teach. We don't pay you to get involved in personal matters. There might be some countries where there literally is no resource set up. So the problem is not being addressed, not because they don't want to, but because they don't know how. And then there are some countries where, what I would consider abuse is actually normal practices amongst this culture. That is something that you really want to be aware of when you are looking for a resolution, because the resolution that you are looking for may not necessarily be the resolution that you're going to get. The second thing that I think takes a lot of teachers aback is disciplinary actions that are used in the classroom. While corporal punishment seems really antiquated in America because we don't use it anymore, there are some countries that still use corporal punishment. In one country that I lived in, I was actually told to use corporal punishment as a way of eliciting behavior that I expected in the class. Now, I do want to say, to be fair, that when I told the administration that I was working for that I did not want to use corporal punishment, they were very supportive. But I don't want you to be surprised if you see that used either by your co-teacher or if you see it used by administration. Another level. Piano lessons, after school English classes, math class, chess club, another language in addition to their native language and English. All of this is on a weekly basis. Parents invest a lot into their children here. They want to see them succeed at everything. And not only are these children under enormous amounts of stress themselves, their success reflects on their family. They cannot fail. And I have to say that over 50% of my class in their journals wrote about committing suicide. And then when I tried to bring up, there's over 50% of these kids that are writing like this, that's when it was brought to my attention, because there are so many children that are writing about suicide. That's why it's normal. All children who are this age are writing about suicide. That's why it's a phase. Before I delve into what you want to do, I also want to state that this is not something that you experience every day in the classroom. I am speaking to you as someone who has not only taught abroad for over 6 years. Prior to teaching abroad, my profession in the United States was a crime victims advocate. Well, the first thing you could do is you check your morals and your values and your expectations of how things should be handled. How these are addressed from country to country seems to be what surprises people the most when they accept an ESL role. I would challenge you to really know what your ethics and your morals are, what you are and aren't willing to compromise on. Part of being a teacher is getting to know your students and being a resource for your students on situations that you may not necessarily be prepared for. Because there might be situations that require you stepping out of that 9-to-5 role. If you're just accepting an ESL position so you can get a check and backpack, I really don't think that you should be teaching abroad. So here we go. Here's some things that I've learned. Things like domestic violence, sexual assault, these things are prevalent everywhere. Well, the first thing that you can do is look to see if there are resources in the country that you're interested in for these what if scenarios. Are there child protective services? Is there a domestic abuse hotline? Do they have a policy in place if there was a child that was to disclose? And familiarize yourself with. You don't have to memorize everything, just familiarize yourself with how that process works. Start off by asking your school or your supervisor a what if situation. If you hear answers like, that's not your concern, oh, we'll talk to the parent, or even that doesn't happen here, that lets you know how they handle situations like this and what you should possibly be prepared for. Here are some things that you can do. The most impactful thing that you can do if a child comes forward, or a friend comes forward, or a coworker comes forward, if you're in a country that does not have resources for someone to get continuous support, is to listen and to be there for them in as much capacity as you are able to offer. Listen to them talk, validate their feelings, and let them know that they are not alone. I can tell you that I had a student that disclosed to me some horrific things that were being done to her at home. There were no resources that were available to her, but it made such a difference for her to be able to come to school to talk and to have that space created for her to be able to get her feelings out. There was nothing that I could do to resolve the situation, but it made such a huge difference for her to be able to come to school to talk about the bad days that she's had. And for me to say, that sounds really horrible. I'm so glad that you made it here today. It made such a huge difference in her demeanor, in her resolve to find resources for herself, and just to have somebody to talk to believe her and not victim shame her. That's really important too. Just be there for them and believe them when they come forward. You may not think that you're doing anything about it by listening, but I can tell you that I've had students that have disclosed to me that have a total shift in attitude just by being able to come and talk about what they're going through and to have somebody believe them without judgment. In these conversations, they have been able to empower themselves, maybe not enough to where they were able to get out of the situation, but empower themselves with coping mechanisms, with thinking about ways for them to be able to express themselves that help them through this situation until they're able to either be of age where they can leave or trust enough to confide in another adult that lives within their country that they know will do something about it. For them to be able to say, I have finally been able to write a journal, or I finally started to go for a walk, or I learned how to meditate when I feel this anxiety. That being something major for them, simply because you listened and you thought of ways to help them by helping themselves, made a huge difference. This school is horrible. They did absolutely nothing. Looking for suggestion. Your third course may even be to literally confront the parents. This might seem like the right thing to do, but it is the right thing to do because of where you were raised and what you expect the outcome to be. That can result in a myriad of things. That can result in you losing your contract. That can result in the school suing you. And if these people had the right connections, it could possibly result in you getting blacklisted from the country. You confronting the parents about their behavior is probably the worst thing that you can do. It may make you feel good, knowing that you're taking up for this child that has this injustice done to them. However, if this becomes too much for you, you get to leave in a year. That child still has to go home to that parent or that individual. What situation have you put that child in that they now have to go back to while you feel good for the 5 minutes that you got to confront those parents? You have done such a disservice to this child. This was not a unicorns and rainbows YouTube. It was a little bit dark, but I felt that it was really, really necessary. I hope that this doesn't discourage you from making the decision to travel abroad, because there are really, really great experiences. And even in these seemingly shitty experiences, great things can still happen, and you can still make that much of a difference in this child's life, even though you can't resolve the issue for them. I hope that makes sense. If you hung in to the end of this video, thank you very much. I hope that you found this information useful. If there are any other questions that you may have thought of that I did not address, please leave them in the comment box below. I would encourage you, please, not to send me an email and leave your questions in the comment box, because there might be someone else who is thinking the exact same thing that you are thinking, and your question is bringing either information to someone who might be going through something similar. I thank you guys so much for joining me. Please, if you found this video useful, feel free to share, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.